Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. At the turn of the 20th century, enterprising showmen were eager to exploit the emerging technology of motion pictures. In fact, the very first venues for showing motion pictures in America weren't theaters, but amusement halls and penny arcades. In the late 19th century, the public often got its first taste of new technologies at coin-operated parlors. In the 1890s, for example, Thomas Edison set up phonograph parlors, where Americans paid a nickel to put on headsets and listen to some of the very first music recordings. The 30-year period from 1896 to 1926 is the story of a tinkerer's technology that becomes a kind of artistic, industrial and consumer fantasy, says Ross Melnick, a professor of film and media studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Moving pictures were the next big breakthrough. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel. The first motion picture camera was patented by French inventor Louis Le Prince in 1888, and the idea was developed further by the Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, in France and Edison in America. At first, there weren't any projectors or screens to view the short films, which included 20-second loops of flexing strongman Eugene Sandow, a cockfight or Annie Oakley shooting her rifle. Instead, Edison and his assistant William Dickson invented a coin-operated viewing contraption called the kinetoscope. They put the film inside a fairly large box that was close to chest high, and you would bend down to look at it, says William Paul, founding director of film and media studies at Washington University in St. Louis. You actually hand-cranked it and ran through the film, which was on an endless loop, but you could only run through it once. For a nickel, you could watch 1 minute of people moving as in real life. It was captivating. The very first kinetoscope parlor opened to the public on April 14, 1894, in a storefront at Broadway and 27th Street in New York City. Inside were 5 kinetoscopes lined up in a row, each loaded with a different short film. For 25 cents, a patron could view all 5. For 2 years, coin-operated parlors and penny arcades were the only place the American public could view a motion picture, and Edison believed that individual viewing, not projection for an audience, was the future of motion picture technology. In 1895, Edison debuted the kinetophone, another coin-operated device that paired moving pictures with recorded sound. I think that's the really interesting thing about that period, says Melnick, because it suggests that there were 2 different trajectories by which motion pictures could be exhibited, and they were soon competing to be part of the consumer experience. America's first movie theater. Although Edison was slow to embrace film projection, others weren't. In 1895, Dickson left the Edison Company to help inventor Woodville Latham create his idoloscope projector. Then Dickson patented his own projector technology called the mutoscope. When profits from kinetoscope parlors began to wane, the Edison Company finally saw the light and bought the patent for a projector called the phantoscope, quickly renaming it the Edison Vitascope. In 1896, Edison learned that the Lumiere brothers were planning the first American exhibition of projected motion pictures at a rented theater in New York City. Edison says, "Wait a second, we've got to beat them on this," says Paul. So he rents the Coster and Beals Music Hall, a popular vaudeville theater, for the first public demonstration of the Vitascope. For many film historians, April 23, 1896, was the birthday of the movie theater in America. Paying spectators crowded into Coster and Beals Theater to marvel at a series of short motion pictures projected on a small, 20-foot by 12-foot white screen. An article in the next day's The New York Times described the experience. An unusually bright light fell upon the screen. Then came into view 2 precious blonde young persons of the variety stage, in pink and blue dresses, doing the umbrella dance with commendable celerity. Their motions were all clearly defined. When they vanished, a view of an angry surf breaking on a sandy beach near a stone pier amazed the spectators. The waves tumbled in furiously and the foam of the breakers flew high in the air. So enthusiastic was the appreciation of the crowd long before this extraordinary exhibition was finished that vociferous cheering was here. Movie theaters in the vaudeville era following the Vitascope's successful debut, vaudeville theaters essentially became the first movie theaters in America. At the turn of the 20th century, the vaudeville variety show was the most popular form of mass entertainment. There were no purpose-built motion picture theaters in 1896, says Melnick, so movies were typically shown as a segment of the vaudeville program. Many of the earliest motion pictures already featured vaudeville performers, acrobats, slapstick comedians, native dances, so the new projection technology fit seamlessly in the typical vaudeville program. Variety was the engine of vaudeville, with new live acts taking the stage every 20 minutes. It made sense that the early American film industry would stick to the vaudeville model, which was a hit with working-class audiences. Every act or every short film had to be something different, says Paul. So if you had a comic film, then you would have a dramatic film. If you had a dramatic film, you would have a travelogue. If you had a travelogue, then you would have something about the wonders of science. The term, feature film, was borrowed from vaudeville, says Paul. In a typical vaudeville show, the feature act was the biggest draw, perhaps the Marx Brothers or Harry Houdini, and performed second to last in the program. When motion pictures became popular enough to fill that prized slot, they were advertised as the feature event. So the idea of a feature film originally meant something of high quality, says Paul, and then slowly evolved to mean movies of a certain length. Storefront theaters and Nickelodeons. The next evolution in American movie theaters was the rise of the storefront theaters in 1905. Vaudeville theaters were big venues designed for live performances, and a typical vaudeville program ran for 4 hours. Storefront theaters essentially miniaturized the vaudeville experience and made movies the main attraction. A storefront theater is a makeshift theater that takes over an existing store, maybe a restaurant or a dance hall, on a city block, says Paul. There's a small box office at the entryway, seating for between 200 and 300 people, and no stage at the front, just a screen. The Nickelodeon, popularized by vaudeville impresario Harry Davis in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was a storefront theater that charged 5 cents for a program of movies and live entertainment. A trip to the Nickelodeon might include a sing-along, a bicycle built for two, a comedian, a lecture by a traveling professor, and several short movies. The silent movie era was like many other periods of new technology. Everyone was trying new things, says Melnick. Film exhibitors experimented and perfected their show, especially with regards to musical accompaniment and live performance. Every exhibitor was kind of a producer, artist, showman. By 1910, there were more than 10,000 Nickelodeon theaters in America and hundreds of short films in circulation. The popular 5-cent theaters attracted more than 26 million Americans, 20% of the total population. Welcome to the Movie Palace. On April 12, 1914, an entirely new type of movie theater opened on Broadway in Manhattan. The Strand was America's first movie palace, a luxuriously appointed, 3,000-seat theater designed for watching movies in comfort and style.